Imagine walking onto a factory floor. But instead of the usual hum of machines and people scribbling on clipboards, you have a system that knows it's going to break down, like 3 days before a gear actually snaps.
Right. Or a production line that can tweak the recipe for a drug in real time, just because the humidity in the room changed by, what, 1%?
Exactly. It sounds a bit like science fiction.
Or at least, the very expensive pitch deck from some futurist consulting firm.
Yes. But the data we're looking at today suggests this isn't just a pitch deck anymore. We're talking about Pharma 4.0 smart manufacturing. And the numbers attached to this shift, as of 2026, are pretty aggressive.
They really
Are seeing potential operational cost cuts of 20%, batch variability dropping by 30%, and production cycles
compressed by almost 40%. Those are the kinds of numbers that make a CFO really sit up and pay attention.
But, and this is the huge but hanging over this whole thing, if you walk into an average pharmaceutical plant today, you don't see that sci-fi movie.
No, you don't.
No, you see paper.
Mountains of it. Binders, logbooks, manual signatures. And that's the central paradox we need to unpack today, isn't it? On one hand, you have this Pharma 4.0 promise of a self-correcting factory.
And on the other, you have an industry that's, well, notoriously risk-averse, still struggling with what you might call Pharma 2.0.
Yeah, these legacy systems.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to list the cool tech. We need to bridge that gap. How does a company actually get from paper binders to AI-driven systems without, going bankrupt or breaking the law?
And why now? That's the critical context.
Right. We've had computers for decades. Why the sudden scramble?
It's the hangover from the post-COVID era. I mean, that period taught the industry a really brutal lesson.
That rigid supply chains break.
They shatter. We all realize that agility and resilience aren't just corporate buzzwords anymore, they're survival mechanisms. If your competitor can switch production lines in 3 days to meet a sudden demand spike, and it takes you 3 weeks because you're waiting on paperwork.
You're absolutely...
You are. So it's not just about making it cheaper anymore.
It's about being able to make it at all when the world changes.
Precisely. And ultimately, it all comes down to patient safety. Consistency equals quality. If you can guarantee the pill made on a Monday morning is identical to one made on Friday afternoon, you save lives.
So let's look at the map for this. The source material leans really heavily on the maturity model from the ISPE.
That's the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineering. They're sort of the standard bearers here. And they've laid out this 6-stage maturity model. I think it's important to see it as a ladder.
Okay, a ladder.
Yeah, and you really can't jump from the bottom rung to the top without falling off.
So let's climb it. What's stage 1?
Digitization. This is the absolute basement level. It's just moving from paper to glass. If your batch records are handwritten, that's unstructured data. An AI can't read it, it can't learn from it, you have to digitize just to get in the game.
Which sounds easy, like just can it. But I imagine a 40-year-old plant that's a massive culture shock.
It's huge. It's often the hardest step, culturally. But once you do it, you can get to stage 2, connectivity. This is the IoT, the Internet of Things.
So getting the machines talking.
Right. In the old days, a mixer was just an island. It did its job, but it didn't tell anyone. Connectivity means you plug that mixer into the network so it can talk to the database.
Okay, so machines are plugged in and talking. Stage 3.
Visibility. And this is the first time you get real operational value. It answers the question, what is happening right now?
Not last month's report.
Exactly. The plant manager has a real-time dashboard. They can see the heartbeat of the factory as it beats.
Okay, so we've gone from what happened last month to what's happening now.
Right, but we still don't know why. That's stage 4. Transparency. This is where you start using the data to find root causes. Why did pressures spike? Why is the yield lower on the night shift?
You're adding context to the data. It's not just a number anymore, it's a story.
Exactly. And that leads to stage 5. Predictability. This is the big leap. It's simulation. We stop looking backward and start forecasting.
This machine isn't broken yet, but based on this vibration pattern, it will break in 48 hours.
That's it. Which brings us to the top. Stage 6.
The Holy Grail.
Adaptability. The autonomous factory. The system sees a raw material is a bit denser than usual, and it automatically tweaks the mixing speed to compensate. In real time, without a human ever touching a button.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But looking at this list, if I'm a plant manager at stage 1, staring at a stack of logbooks, stage 6 feels 100 years away.
And that is probably the most important takeaway from the roadmap. The sources are so blunt about this.
Yeah.
Do not try to jump from stage 1 to stage 6 in 18 months. It is a
You'll
fantasy.
just burn out your team and run out of money.
100%. The successful companies are plotting a 3 to 5 year journey. They target moving up maybe 2 stages. It's evolution, not revolution.
So being realistic means starting small. That brings us to our first major strategy in the material, the power of pilots.
Right. You have to find a Goldilocks pilot.
Not too big, not too small.
Exactly. If it's too small, like automating the cafeteria lights, no one cares. It doesn't prove business value. But if it's too big, like automating an entire filling line at once, you'll probably fail from the complexity.
So you need something that hurts enough to matter, but is solvable.
Yes. And the report points to one specific area as the undisputed champion here.
Predictive maintenance.
That's the one. Because the pain is so financial and so immediate, in pharma, unplanned downtime is catastrophic.
We aren't just talking about paying a mechanic overtime.
No, if a line stops mid-batch, you might have to throw away millions of dollars of product. The sources estimate the cost is somewhere between $50,000 and $200,000 per hour.
That is a staggering burn rate.
It completely changed the math. Suddenly, spending $50,000 on sensors seems cheap if it saves you just 1 hour of downtime.
The case study about the homogenizer illustrated this perfectly.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, a homogenizer is basically a high-tech industrial blender, right?
Roughly, yeah. It uses immense pressure to mix things, and its bearings take a real beating. In this case, the facility attached vibration sensors to it. They were just listening.
And what did they hear?
Well, the AI analyzed the vibration patterns, and it flagged a degradation signature on one bearing. To the human ear, it sounded fine.
But the data said, I'm dying.
Exactly. So they didn't wait for it to fail. They paused the line during a scheduled break, swapped the bearing, and restarted. That one intervention prevented an estimated 18-hour stoppage.
Wow. And the ROI?
In direct costs, it was about $14,000. But the real value was confidence. The team saw it work. That buys you the political capital to go do the next project.
Speaking of the next project, the other big pilot area is digital twins. Now, digital twin is a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in a pharma plant?
It's a virtual replica. Think of a flight simulator, but for a bioreactor. It's a physics-based model of your equipment running inside a computer.
You use this to test things without risking the real machine.
Precisely. And the killer app for this is something called virtual commissioning.
Walk us through that.
Okay, so usually you build the physical machine, you install it, and then you plug in the software and see if it works.
And it never works the first time.
Never. You spend months debugging code while this multi-million-dollar piece of steel just sits there.
Expensive silence.
With a digital twin, your engineers can test the automation code on the virtual model months before the physical machine even arrives. They find all the bugs in the simulation.
The notes mention one facility cut their timeline in half.
They did. From 18 months down to 9. That's almost a year of extra revenue. Plus, they saved $1 million in setup costs.
And what about this concept of the golden batch?
This is where it gets really scientific.
Sure.
Let's say you want to improve your yield. You could run 500 experiments in the real world, wasting expensive ingredients every time. Or you run 500 experiments in the digital twin. You find the perfect settings in the simulation, and then you apply that golden batch recipe to the real world.
Super efficient, but... And I feel like this is where the other shoe drops. All this cool AI, all these digital twins, it all relies on something very, very unsexy.
The data foundation.
Strategy number 2. And the warning in the report is blunt. Inaccurate data wrecks even the best AI models.
It's garbage in, garbage out, but on steroids. The problem in pharma is that the data is often trapped in what the sources call contextual wastelands.
That sounds bleak. Give us an example.
Okay. Imagine your database has a temperature reading, 45.
45 what?
Exactly. Celsius, Fahrenheit. Is that the temperature of the vessel's jacket or
Nah.
the product inside? If the computer doesn't know the context, the number 45 is worse than useless. It's dangerous.
And if you feed that ambiguity into an AI?
The AI hallucinates. It makes completely wrong predictions. This is why the industry is rallying around the FAIR principles.
That's an acronym, right?
Yep. FAIR. Data must be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable.
Interoperable feels like the really tricky one there.
It's the nightmare. This gets into master data management. It sounds boring, but it's absolutely critical. It means making sure ethanol in your lab system is identified the same way as ethyl alcohol in your factory system.
If one calls it Mat A001 and the other calls it Material A, The machines can't talk.
They can't. And harmonizing that is just grunt work. It can take 6 to 12 months of painful manual data cleaning.
But you have to do it.
You have to pay the tax. The research shows if you do it up front, you accelerate your future AI projects by 40 to 50%. You're building the highway so the race car can actually drive.
Okay, highway's built. Let's drive. Strategy 3 is AI in quality and continuous manufacturing. This feels like the shift from inspecting to predicting.
Correct. The old model, quality control, is reactive. You make a batch, take a sample to the lab, and test it. If it's bad, you throw the whole thing away. You're trying to test quality into the product.
Which is incredibly wasteful.
The new model is predictive quality. Take tablet manufacturing. An AI can look at all the inputs, humidity, powder density, even which operator is on shift, and it can predict, hey, in 20 minutes, the tablet weight is going to drift out of spec.
So you stop it before you make a single bad pill.
Or better yet, the machine fixes it itself. That's adaptive control.
Is this where continuous manufacturing comes in?
Yes. Continuous manufacturing moves away from that start-stop batch approach to a continuous stream, like water in a pipe. You use real-time sensors like near-infrared spectroscopy to check the chemical makeup as it flows.
Near-infrared spectroscopy.
Think of it as a special light that shines on the mixture. Based on how the light reflects, it can tell you the chemical composition instantly. No need for a lab sample.
And if it mixes off?
The system just adjusts the feed rates instantly. It doesn't ask for permission. It just keeps the product in that safe zone.
And the benefit there is a 30 to 40% reduction in production cycle time.
That, and it almost eliminates out-of-spec waste. You aren't dumping batches because you never made a bad batch in the first place.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here. We're talking about AI predicting quality, machines fixing themselves. If I'm a chemist on the floor, am I updating my resume?
And that brings us to strategy 4, the human element. And funnily enough, the biggest bottleneck right now is not the tech. It's the lack of people who understand it.
The stats say 49% of executives call the skills gap their #1 problem.
Right. So the question becomes, do you fire your chemists and hire data scientists from Silicon Valley?
I'm guessing the answer is no.
A hard no. A data scientist might know Python, but they don't know what GMP good manufacturing practices is. They don't get the chemistry. They could optimize a process in a way that makes it completely illegal or unsafe.
So what's the solution?
Reskilling. The report champions what they call the centaur model.
I love that. Half human, half horse.
In this case, half domain expert, half AI user. You take a quality manager with 15 years of experience. They know where all the bodies are buried. You teach that person how to use a low-code data tool.
You're supercharging your existing experts.
Exactly. It costs half as much as hiring externally, and it solves the fear problem. You're showing the workforce that AI isn't here to replace them. It's here to take away the boring stuff so they can do the real analysis.
But there's one group that needs more than reassurance. They need proof. We have to talk about strategy 5, navigating regulation.
The FDA, the EMA, yeah.
How do they feel about an AI that thinks for itself?
They're cautious. I mean, the big question they ask is, how do you validate an algorithm that learns? If the system updates itself next week, is it still the same safe system we approved today?
You can't just validate it once.
No. So the strategy here is proactive transparency. You cannot build a black box model that just spits out an answer. You need validation by design.
What does that look like in practice?
It means the AI has to show its work. The audit trail is built right in. I adjusted the temperature because input A changed. And you have to engage the regulators early on. You define a design space.
A sandbox for the machine.
Pretty much. You prove to the FDA that as long as the machine stays within these boundaries, say between 20 and 25 degrees, the product will be safe. Once they agree to that design space, you let the AI adjust anywhere inside those lines without needing a new filing.
That seems like the critical compromise. It maintains control, but unlocks efficiency.
It's really the only way forward. If you try to hide the AI logic, they will reject it. This method gives them both safety and speed.
So bringing this all together, we've covered the roadmap, the pilots, the data hygiene, the people, the law. What's the final verdict?
The verdict is that the window is closing.
How so?
The source material ends with a pretty stark choice. By 2030, the divide between the smart manufacturers and the traditional ones will just be insurmountable.
The companies that can compress their cycles by 40% and predict failures are just going to outrun everyone else.
It's not a question of if anymore, it's about velocity.
Right.
And here's a final thought for you to chew on. The report suggests that true maturity isn't actually about buying the best software from a vendor.
Yo,
No, it's about building internal capability. True maturity is when you stop needing the consultants. It's when your own centaurs, your own reskilled team, are the ones building and validating the next AI solution.
When the innovation comes from the inside.
That's when you've really won.
Building the brain of the company, not just buying the muscle. I like that. That's a wrap on Pharma 4.0. Thanks for diving in with us.
My pleasure.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.